do so.
Well,
There are vacancies.
that is true. And I hope that the governor will be shriven of the notion that because you have one black, you don't need another. There's plenty of room for 2 or 3 blacks in the appellate division. The second department in Brooklyn is way ahead of us in that respect. It has 2 blacks already.
What do you think of the popular and public reaction to the subway attempted murder for which someone was indicted, Getz was indicted? Do you think that the grand jury system is a good system?
I've never approved of star chamber proceedings, which is what grand jury is. Highly secret. Your lawyer cannot come in there. It's not really adversarial, except that you have an adversary and you're not allowed to have your own counsel in there. No, I don't like it. There are, I'm told, excellent reasons for keeping it secret, because somebody may not be indicted, but the bad odor of an accusation may remain behind. No, I don't like it. And I do know from my own experience that grand juries generally do what the district attorney wants them to do. And it seems obvious to me that the district attorney didn't want an indictment on the major felony here of shooting 2 people in the back and shooting 2 others. Nothing has been clear yet, and I assume that it will be once the videotape is publicized.
Well, the newly appointed chief judge, Wackler, the governor just appointed, also has stated publicly recently that he's opposed to the grand jury system, and that it should be discontinued, and that there should be an accountability on the part of the prosecutor. If they're going to prosecute somebody, let them bring that person to trial without the intervention of a grand jury, which the prosecutor basically, and I agree with you, controls. But I don't know, what else do you think? We don't really always talk about these things when we're together as judges. We sometimes joke and kid around and have a good sense of humor sometimes.
Yes, if I talked about the things that are on my mind, nobody would speak to me. Mm-hmm. I'm very much troubled by racism in the law. Indeed, I've written a book for Prentice Hall on that very subject called Black Robes, White Justice. I've been very upset and very angry about the criminal justice system, especially as I've seen it here in New York. One would think that blacks and Hispanics are the only ones committing crimes in this city, if you see the criminal court and the census of that place. And my feeling is that we need a school for judges, especially in a polyglot city such as we have. And the only instruction I ever got before I went on the bench was be sure and go to the bathroom before going on the bench. And that was about it. Or look around and see how the older judges do it, which I came to believe was compounding the error. We need judges in a city such as this who do not regard blacks and Hispanics as aliens to their way of life and approach them with a certain degree of hostility. We need what Roscoe Pound described over 60 years ago as sociological jurisprudence. And if I were king, no judge would be able or eligible to run for the court system here in this city unless he could show that he had some courses in sociology and some courses in psychology, some courses in humanist philosophy, and so that he would know some black history, some Hispanic culture, and not regard people who came before him as utter aliens. One of the great difficulties with judging has been that too many are middle class, white, aloof, socially distant from the very people they have to sit in judgment of.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you feel that within the judicial system here, that there is racism.
Oh my goodness, yes, indeed.
Hi, I'm going to break in and tell the audience who you all are, because you sound so profound that nobody would guess that it was my show, because I'm always so crazy. But you're listening to a marvelous dialogue between 2 of my favorite people, Leonard Cohen, acting Supreme Court judge, and Bruce Wright, judge in the, elected judge, that is, in the Supreme Court for all the counties, Bruce, or just New York County?
I was elected from New York County. No, I've never sat in the
Oh,
other
really?
place,
Okay. All right, and 2 things you haven't talked about. You've not talked about your photography and your art, and you've not talked about your tennis.
What about my poetry?
Oh, the poetry. I told you to bring a poem. That's what I was wondering. Is that a poem? Did you bring it like I
Oh,
told you?
I did bring the poem.
Okay, all right. So you're not going to play tennis because it's too cold. So why don't you read a poem and then you talk about your photographs?
Is it really all right if I read a poem?
No, I ordered
come
you
on,
to.
come
It was
on.
all set up.
I
and
don't
all.
think he needs much convincing.
Okay,
I know.
darling.
Well,
you're
you have
absolutely
some-
right.
Bruce is a poet.
He really
and I've
is.
seen his
And he
opinions.
speaks fluent French, so there. And
I've-
he's not
I've-
Haitian there.
I've read his
he just
opinions,
speaks it because he
and
learned
his opinions are literary, they're poetic, and he draws upon Aristotle.
it. I know.
He draws upon
He really
Shakespeare.
talks poetry.
It's my old age. While you say something,
Why
I'm
are
going to
so
go
many
and fetch my
women-
poem.
No, really? You're kidding.
right over
Let
here
me
in the
hand
back.
it to you, darling. Here.
It's in one of those...
Well, I must
Y'all
say,
go on.
well, I'm delighted to read it.
Flo
We
mentioned
only got about 8 minutes left.
Flo mentioned something about photography. I'm sitting here in a studio, which is Don Lynn's studio, who's the producer of this show. He is the supreme still photographer, and I'm surrounded by some of his beautiful photographic portraits.
It's an
I
incredible
can't
studio.
equal what he does.
Oh, yes.
All I did at some years ago, is take some simple black and white pictures and printed them up and developed the film and then
did that yourself?
printed them up in a dark room. And it was very pleasant but time consuming. I haven't done very much recently, but so I'm very envious of what Don Lynn's work looks like and is.
It's incredible.
And, I'm looking at it right now. At any rate, I want to hear the poem.
Well, this poem was written in the West Indies a few weeks ago, and I was lying on the beach surrendering myself to sloth. And it's called
As
Galileo's...
a judge, when did you get that time to do that?
When you work-
I don't understand.
When you work during
When-
Christmas week, you get a week off.
Uh-huh.
I
Is
took
that your
it.
excuse?
That's right.
All right.
I escaped. And these are thoughts that occurred to me because I remembered how the Earth looked when viewed from the moon or from outer space by the astronauts.
Have you been there?
No, I haven't. And it was very exciting to me. And this, no matter what you may think about it, is about the moon. It's called Galileo's Dark Sahara. Pressing round the lava shape of Earth are frozen ocean spaces. Our temperate meteor, arrested in the petrified circle of its limits, hangs like a clouded picture upon the air. It is there, whirling in its invisible spin, losing its daily race with the sun. It hangs, a stolid, harsh balloon, buffeted by the turbulence of first cause. It hangs, obedient to its place, mated to a cold lover. It yields its tides to the dead bauble of a moon. Merlins, dissecting secrecy, make studious mumble in Greek and Latin on their stellar maps. Planets receive arrogant definitions. Mercator's flat mistakes are humbled, and cold craters are christened anew as speculators probe the fires of geology that light our years. They send the chauffeurs of their science to invade the distance. Awkward angels dressed in immunized precautions, they are aliens to the cherubs of Christ or Michelangelo. And now we know the neighborhood of Galileo's gazed upon lofty, dark Sahara. Within our menaced membrane, we cling to temper and the mystery of breath, and those who reject the holy science of Genesis are magnetized to the Magi's stars. They preach a passion of obeisance to the arithmetic of feeling. They believe, and that Trinity is both three and one. But the guru argonauts of space prefer a gospel according to Einstein. They take communion with relativities. They relish the bite of Newton's apple, and they rejoice in the sin of knowing. Nobel wisdom dares desert bleakness of places beyond lost air, and then in tongues and codes they speak of heaven's fires, and let us brood on Satan's vengeful arson. The blinding mystery of the sun makes us fondle falsehoods, and we believe that the moon shines. In the poetry of fortune-tellers, accountants of the sky's laboratory litter dot their charts with dippers, a belted hunter, and for the faithful, an altar and an ark. But in the Big Bang realm of quiet, without marked time or fickle season, the stoic moon perseveres, a failed Icarus. It seems fashioned there, a Pavlov's dog of orbit, and the scholars of its dirt tell us how it is entombed in the pulver of its drowned dead seas. It is, some writings say, a spatial mummy, an aloof and spectral lover of the earth, a mute whimper of its ancient noise. And yet, more than a gilded ball, more than a black lamp, it has kindled seminal images. Deaf and dumb, it reflects the sources of music, blood, and heat in its neuter mirror. Its vacant pulse lured Lear to madness, flooded Bluebeard's uxorial abattoir, made crimson the ashes of Holocaust, drove Christians in their pious felonies of geography, their larcenous ethic of black bondage, and it watched nude Africans adopt their owner's genuflect. Ah, yes, the moon. Glued upon our minds, it remains a relic in the air, a still life in its dry and dusty drama. It is a lightless wick, a thief of glimmer, reflecting false faces. Its cold crust has made mankind inflame itself, sing songs, and celebrate painful postures in a madness named as love. But there is no man in the moon, and no woman, except those now and then trespassers in their hermetic camouflage, who dance like puppet ghosts and seem to float upon the dust they agitate. Athletic robots, they rob our rituals of their fluids, topple Pentecostal steeples, and jeer the seven-day Jehovah Germinal. Out there, in that vast hole, gods and devils can be lost in back of space, and once the stars are reduced to formulae, an axiom, an infallible calculus of man's rivalry with the sire of Jesus, where then shall a seeker of visions look?
I think that was beautiful and lovely. But let me ask you, Bruce, was that all done on the beach?
No, it's done on my typewriter.
Oh, excuse me. No, really.
After I left the beach.
It really is lovely. And some of that richness of your poetry, I can tell you, are in your there. It's in your decisions. And,
Really? Does he
oh,
write those kinds of
I
decisions?
well,
sneak it
not
in.
quite. He doesn't. He would not. I mean, this does not involve a decision.
But his
of
writing is
parties.
really
But
quite
yes,
literary.
but Bruce is a.
And I forgot to
marvelous
say
writer.
you're a poet too.
Oh,
but I
not-
didn't
not in the
remind
sa-
you to bring
not
anything.
Not in the same.
Oh
spirit.
yeah, because you remember you wrote that poem for my book a long time ago.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, and you write. He writes really great poet. So that means I have to bring you both back so we can get equal time.
Oh, that's all
But
right.
anyway,
No,
we're
no, no.
drawing close to the end of this little judicial dialogue, and it was really great. And so we've kept you so long that I think that we'll invite you back. And this time, you have to bring some photographs, and you have to bring your tennis racket, and you have to bring a
some
poem.
poetry.
And listen, we've got to get that book of yours out, really. I was talking to Bob about it the
Oh,
other
really?
day. No, yeah, it was. I really was.
Prentice Hall said they're
Okay.
afraid they'll be sued for libel.
It's been the Flo Kennedy Show, and my guests have been two judges, the Honorable Leonard N. Cohen, Honorable Bruce Wright. Comes out Lenny Bruce, and weren't they fabulous? I loved every minute of it. Thank y'all.
All right.
Goodbye, y'all.
That was really very nice.
Wasn't as tough as I thought it would be.